Lieutenant Emily Harper arrived at Fort Bragg on a cool spring morning, the base sprawling before her like a city of soldiers, vehicles, and endless drills. The sun glinted off the metallic surfaces of tanks and rifles, and the sound of boots striking pavement echoed through the compound. Emily adjusted her cap, the insignia of her new rank catching the light, and inhaled the sharp scent of gunpowder and diesel. Her mind was clear, her purpose resolute, yet a faint undercurrent of nervousness tickled the edge of her consciousness. She had prepared for this moment for years, though no one here would ever guess the true nature of her skill. From the moment she stepped into the barracks, she felt the invisible weight of scrutiny. New recruits glanced her way, some sizing her up with curiosity, others with mild disinterest. Emily, however, kept her gaze steady and polite. She spoke only when necessary, her voice calm and deliberate, the kind that drew attention without demanding it. Already she noticed subtle patterns, which recruits were quick to follow orders, which instructors favored discipline over strategy, and which corners of the barracks held opportunities for unnoticed observation. She filed this information quietly in her mind, a habit formed during years of preparation and training. The other soldiers assumed she was meticulous because of her habit of counting magazines, a task that seemed mundane but gave her a sense of order in a world that would inevitably be chaotic. Each magazine was handled with care, stacked neatly, checked and double-checked. Her peers murmured to one another, joking that she had a compulsive streak or an obsession with organization. Little did they know that this ritual was not just about order, it was practice, a meditative exercise to train patience and attention to detail. Every bullet counted, every magazine inspected, every movement deliberate. Emily understood that in combat, even the smallest oversight could cost lives. Her first day of drills was a test of stamina and endurance, designed to push recruits to their limits. Soldiers ran through obstacle courses, climbed walls, crawled through mud, and hauled heavy packs across the base. Emily moved with quiet efficiency, never rushing, never showing strain, her eyes constantly scanning the environment. Instructors barked commands, yet she performed each task with precise timing, never too fast to make a mistake, never too slow to fall behind. Observers noted her discipline, though they still dismissed her as just another soldier following orders. During a break, she lingered by the range, watching other recruits firing rifles at distant targets. The sound of bullets striking targets filled the air with sharp, rhythmic cracks. Emily picked up a rifle, her movements smooth and practiced, almost instinctive. She aimed, breathed steadily, and squeezed the trigger. The target shattered at the precise center, a shot that would have impressed even the most seasoned marksman. She repeated this silently, target after target, her form flawless. Yet no one noticed her fellow recruits were busy boasting about their hits. Instructors were occupied with scheduling, and Emily's silent mastery remained her secret. Over the next few days, patterns began to emerge. Emily noticed which soldiers were reckless, which instructors were predictable, and which areas of the base were most vulnerable to observation. She made mental notes, walking through the barracks and training grounds with the patience of a cat watching a mouse. While others hurried to show strength or competence, Emily observed and calculated. Every detail mattered: the rustle of a uniform, the cadence of footsteps, the angle of sunlight across the range. She internalized everything, knowing that this quiet attentiveness would one day save lives. Despite her reserve, Emily was not without camaraderie. She exchanged brief, polite greetings, learned her unit's routines, and smiled at small jokes. Yet she always maintained a distance. Soldiers tried to draw her into conversation, asking about her past training, her family, or her reasons for joining. Emily answered just enough to be polite, offering nothing that revealed her true nature. Organization and discipline are key, she would say, her tone calm, almost rehearsed. That was true, but only a fraction of the truth. The real training, the years of marksmanship, observation, and strategic thinking remained hidden. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, Emily returned to the barracks with a stack of magazines. She began the familiar task of counting, inspecting, and arranging them. Her hands moved with practiced precision, and her mind wandered to the upcoming exercises. She imagined distant targets, the perfect trajectory of bullets, and the exact timing needed to strike without being seen. This mental rehearsal was as vital as any physical training. It was a rehearsal of life and death, precision and patience. Each magazine represented not just ammunition, but possibility, potential, and control over chaos. Her roommate, a talkative recruit named Jenna, watched her with curiosity. "You really take counting those magazines seriously, huh?" she asked, teasing. Emily gave a polite smile. "It's important," she replied simply, letting her hands continue their work. Jenna shook her head, assuming Emily's obsession was eccentricity. No one realized that each movement, each careful inspection, was training for focus, for stealth, for patience under pressure. Emily's mind was constantly running simulations, distance, wind, timing, angles, all while appearing utterly ordinary. Later, in the mess hall, Emily observed her peers interacting, noting hierarchy, personalities, and patterns of behavior. She spoke sparingly, listening more than talking. Every laugh, every complaint, every boast was data. She recognized the soldiers who would react predictably under stress, those who might panic, and those who could be relied upon. Her attention to detail extended beyond weapons. It encompassed human behavior. Understanding people, just as much as understanding rifles, would make the difference between success and failure in the field. As night fell, Emily returned to the rifle range, now deserted except for the occasional guard. She set up targets at varying distances, calculating angles and wind speeds with near mathematical precision. Each shot she fired was measured, deliberate, and exact. She observed the flight of the bullet, the impact, the subtle shifts required to perfect her aim. Hours passed without fatigue. Her mind remained sharp, her body steady. She had transformed the mundane into a proving ground, the quiet into preparation, and the ordinary into mastery. By the end of her first week, Emily Harper had earned a reputation for calmness and discipline, yet no one suspected her hidden skill. To the untrained eye, she was a meticulous supply officer, quietly counting magazines and performing her duties. But beneath that serene exterior lay a soldier of unparalleled precision, patience, and strategy. Emily had planted the seeds of a secret reputation, one that would soon astonish everyone around her. Her journey had begun quietly, unnoticed, yet its impact would be profound and unforgettable. While her fellow recruits slept or exhausted themselves with routine drills, Emily Harper often stayed behind at the rifle range. The base grew quiet at night, punctuated only by distant footsteps of night guards and the occasional hum of military vehicles. Most recruits believed their performance ended with the day's exercises, but Emily's training was never confined to daylight. She moved silently among the targets, her presence almost ghost-like, setting up challenges that stretched the limits of her skill. Each target represented not just a mark to hit, but a puzzle to solve, testing patience, precision, and control under pressure. Emily's fingers traced the contours of her rifle as though it were an extension of herself. She adjusted the scope, calculated the wind direction, and even accounted for minor environmental variables like temperature and humidity, all in her mind. She imagined scenarios she might face in combat: distant enemy snipers, guards, moving vehicles, sudden shifts in light. Each adjustment she made was deliberate, almost ritualistic. This was more than practice. It was preparation for life and death moments she hoped would never come, but knew she must be ready for. During one particularly long night, Emily set up targets at distances that most soldiers would never attempt. A mere 300 meters seemed trivial, but she went further 500, 700, even 1,000 meters, challenging her skill and nerve. The rifle's recoil, the sway of her breathing, the faint movement of the targets, all demanded complete focus. She squeezed the trigger with absolute calm, watching each bullet strike precisely where she intended. The sound of impact echoed softly through the range, and she allowed herself a small, satisfied nod. These were silent victories, unseen by anyone, yet they strengthened her confidence and honed her instincts. Her secret practice sessions were not just about marksmanship. They were about cultivating patience and restraint. Emily never rushed a shot, never acted impulsively. She learned to control adrenaline, to manage fear, and to observe the world around her with razor-sharp clarity. While other recruits relied on brute strength or reflex, she relied on calculation, observation, and discipline. Every miscalculation, every missed shot became a lesson etched into her memory, refining her precision further. By night's end, she often felt exhausted in body, but energized in mind. Emily's instructors noticed anomalies during daytime exercises. Who's hitting these targets at impossible distances? They would ask, reviewing reports. Soldiers shrugged, claiming luck or error. Emily said nothing, her calm demeanor shielding her from suspicion. She learned early that attention was dangerous. Visibility could compromise both skill and life. By concealing her talents, she gained the freedom to train without interference, allowing her abilities to grow undetected. Even the closest peers assumed her accuracy was ordinary, attributing her success to minor luck or minor diligence rather than calculated expertise. Her talent extended beyond the rifle. Emily honed her observation skills, studying soldiers' movements, guards' routines, and subtle environmental changes that might indicate danger. During base drills, she memorized terrain, noting vantage points, blind spots, and potential threats. Every hallway, doorway, and rooftop became part of her mental map. This wasn't arrogance. It was preparation. If conflict erupted, she needed to move instinctively, with the world already calculated in her mind. These skills, invisible to others, set her apart in ways that would soon become apparent. One evening, during a late-night session, Emily encountered a problem she hadn't faced before: a moving target simulating enemy patrols. It wasn't static or predictable. It changed speed, direction, and distance. Many would have failed under pressure, but Emily's years of study allowed her to anticipate movement, track trajectories, and calculate timing with near-perfect accuracy. Each shot found its mark, one after another, until the target was rendered completely neutralized. She allowed herself a fleeting smile, savoring the combination of skill and patience that had carried her through countless unseen nights. Despite her proficiency, Emily remained humble and disciplined. She never boasted, never flaunted her skill, and never sought recognition. In fact, she took care to appear ordinary, even clumsy, around peers, further diverting suspicion. She knew that for her abilities to be effective, they had to remain unnoticed until the right moment. Emily's duality, quietly lethal in training, modest and unassuming in public, was a conscious choice, reflecting both strategic intelligence and personal humility. Only her closest inner self knew the truth of her capabilities. Even the smallest details mattered. Emily measured the weight of each magazine, noting subtle inconsistencies in bullets, gunpowder, and cases. She tested the effect of wind and light, sometimes calculating distances without a scope, relying solely on intuition honed through endless repetition. Night after night, she pushed herself, using every spare moment to sharpen both mind and body. Where others saw monotony, Emily saw opportunity. Where others saw routine, She saw preparation for real combat scenarios that could erupt without warning. Emily's secret work did not go unnoticed entirely. Some instructors were puzzled by Anomaly's perfect hits. Impossible shots, but they chalked it up to luck, natural talent, or error in reporting. No one suspected the quiet supply officer counting magazines in the barracks. Her secrecy became a shield, protecting both herself and the effectiveness of her skill. Every night, every calculation, every shot refined her expertise, building a foundation that would one day make the difference between life and death for her unit. Her internal discipline extended beyond skill and training. Emily studied maps, memorized enemy tactics from historical operations, and mentally simulated countless combat scenarios. She anticipated movements, counter-movements, and emergencies, preparing not only her hands and eyes, but also her mind. These simulations allowed her to remain calm under pressure and make instantaneous decisions without hesitation. She understood instinct, strategy, and patience better than most, though no one suspected that the soft-spoken recruit was quietly mastering all three simultaneously. By the end of her second week, Emily had transformed her routine into a regimen of precision and preparation. She moved through the barracks, training grounds, and ranged like a ghost, observed by few, understood by fewer. Even as she counted magazines and performed her official duties, her mind was elsewhere running calculations, rehearsing precision shots, and monitoring potential scenarios. Her hidden talent was no longer just skill. It was art, discipline, and patience combined, a lethal combination masked by the facade of ordinariness. Emily's secret talent was also a mental exercise in humility. She remained approachable, polite, and seemingly ordinary, never seeking accolades for the feats she accomplished. This duality fascinated her, outwardly unassuming, inwardly exceptional. Each day, she balanced perfection with invisibility, ensuring that when the moment came, she could act decisively without interference or expectation. The other recruits assumed she was merely meticulous, unaware that every counted magazine, every silent night at the range, was preparation for battles they could not yet imagine. As the sun rose on her third week at Fort Bragg, Emily surveyed the barracks and range with quiet satisfaction. Her peers were still unaware of her abilities, instructors puzzled but unconvinced, and the base remained an endless field of opportunity for observation and practice. Emily Harper, the quiet recruit, had hidden her true talent behind meticulous organization and unassuming calm. Yet beneath the surface, a storm of skill, discipline, and deadly precision was gathering strength ready to reveal itself when circumstances demanded. And she was ready. The roar of military transport jets filled the sky as Emily Harper's unit prepared for deployment overseas. Crates of equipment, ammunition, and supplies were loaded onto the aircraft, while soldiers moved with a mix of urgency and tension. Emily, calm and methodical, checked her own gear, ensuring everything was in order. To her unit, she was just the meticulous lieutenant responsible for logistics, someone who counted magazines and organized supplies with near-obsessive precision. No one suspected the lethal skill lying dormant beneath her composed exterior. The mission briefing outlined their task, a reconnaissance and support operation, in a hostile zone known for insurgent activity. Enemy forces were experienced, well-armed, and highly mobile. Most recruits were tense, whispering among themselves about potential ambushes and sniper fire. Emily, however, listened quietly, absorbing every detail. Her mind began calculating distances, angles, and timing, mapping the terrain as if she were already standing on it. Every road, building, and elevated vantage point was mentally noted. She didn't just prepare for the expected. She prepared for the impossible. Upon arrival at the forward operating base, the heat and dust were immediate and unforgiving. Soldiers struggled with the foreign climate, sweat soaking their uniforms, equipment sticking uncomfortably to their bodies. Emily moved efficiently, organizing supplies, stacking magazines, and ensuring weapons were ready. Her peers assumed this was her primary role, the orderly supply officer who kept the unit functioning. But Emily's eyes constantly scanned the surroundings, every movement of locals, every shadow along the compound walls, every distant ridge where threats could emerge. Observation was her weapon as much as her rifle. During their first patrol outside the base, Emily remained near the rear of the formation, maintaining her cover. The streets were narrow, punctuated by crumbling buildings and debris that could hide danger. Children played near the edges of the patrol path, while wary adults watched the soldiers pass. Emily's eyes caught subtle movements, an arm twitching behind a broken wall, a faint glint suggesting a weapon concealed. She calculated potential threats, angles of fire, and escape routes without a single outward reaction. Her mind was alive with possibilities, yet her hands rested calmly on her organized stack of magazines. By the third day of deployment, Emily had begun her own covert reconnaissance. While officially inspecting ammunition and supplies, she noted patterns in enemy movement and local patrols. Small windows overlooked alleys that could serve as sniper positions. Rooftops provided vantage points for ambush, and open streets demanded careful navigation. Each observation was catalogued mentally, and Emily tested her equipment silently at night, measuring distances and angles with meticulous precision. Her colleagues were unaware that the supply run she conducted was doubling as an elite sniper's field exercise. Then came the first encounter. While moving through a narrow alley, the unit was ambushed by enemy combatants, hidden behind walls and overturned vehicles. Chaos erupted, gunfire rattled the buildings, smoke filled the air, and soldiers scrambled for cover. Emily's peers froze or reacted hastily, unsure of the threat's full extent. But Emily moved with serene efficiency. She positioned herself behind a stack of crates, measured the distance to each target, calculated wind and trajectory, and fired. Each shot was precise, eliminating the threat silently and without hesitation. By the time the ambush ended, enemy combatants were neutralized, and no soldiers had been hit. Her colleagues were stunned. "Who's taking those shots?" whispered a young sergeant, scanning the area nervously. Emily remained calm, continuing to organize magazines as if nothing had happened. The soldiers assumed it was luck, or perhaps an unseen unit operating nearby. Only Emily knew the truth. Every bullet had been hers, every shot deliberate, every movement calculated. She had become both shield and hidden sword, unseen but deadly, protecting her unit while maintaining the illusion of ordinariness. The colonel at the base, reviewing initial patrol reports, was equally mystified. Reports indicated impossibly accurate neutralizations of enemy positions, yet no sniper had been formally deployed. Emily's peers speculated wildly, some blaming intelligence teams, others chalking it up to sheer fortune. Emily herself offered nothing beyond her quiet efficiency, stacking magazines, checking supplies, and maintaining the facade of the meticulous lieutenant. She understood that secrecy was essential. If the enemy realized her skill, they would adapt, and the advantage would be lost. As days passed, Emily's dual life intensified. By day, she was the orderly officer, quietly ensuring ammunition and equipment were ready for patrols. By night, she honed her skills further, moving silently across rooftops, testing sniper positions, and simulating engagement scenarios. Every mission, every patrol, every observation reinforced her precision and patience. The environment was hostile and unpredictable, yet Emily thrived within it. Where others saw danger, she saw opportunity for preparation. Where others panicked, she calculated. Her skill was growing sharper, yet her secret remained intact. During one tense mission, Emily spotted a distant insurgent reconnaissance team surveying the base perimeter. Her peers were unaware, focused on securing their assigned routes. Emily silently adjusted her scope, estimating distance and angle. She took the first shot with perfect timing, neutralizing the threat before it could report their presence. Then another. Each strike was precise, silent, and efficient. The unit, unaware of the sniper eliminating threats beyond their vision, continued patrolling, protected by the hidden talent of the quiet lieutenant. Emily's patience and discipline allowed her to maintain control of chaos without drawing attention to herself. Even within the chaos of deployment, Emily maintained her rituals. She counted magazines meticulously, checked weapons with care, and planned her observations with strategic patience. Her colleagues continued to assume she was merely organized, perhaps overzealous in inventory management, but the truth was far more lethal. Emily's ability to blend precision, patience, and observation created a perfect balance between visibility and invisibility. Her actions saved lives, prevented ambushes, and ensured her unit moved with safety, all while maintaining the facade of ordinariness. As weeks passed, Emily began to earn subtle respect from her peers, though they remained unaware of her true skill. Soldiers noticed her calm in tense situations, her unshakable composure during ambushes, and her uncanny ability to anticipate dangers before they appeared. Some speculated she had military experience beyond their knowledge, but none guessed the full truth. Emily Harper, the quiet lieutenant stacking magazines, was in fact an elite sniper in training, her codename and skills still unknown to everyone, even the commanding officers. One evening, under the pale glow of the moon, Emily perched on a rooftop overlooking a key route used by enemy forces. She adjusted her scope, measured wind, and calculated trajectories as if rehearsing a deadly dance. Her presence was almost spectral, an invisible guardian protecting her unit. Every shot she fired was deliberate, calculated, and invisible to all but the intended target. By the time the patrol returned, the threats had been neutralized silently, and Emily returned to her supposed duties as though nothing extraordinary had occurred. The quiet lieutenant was, in truth, the deadliest weapon her unit had never known. Emily's first overseas mission confirmed what she had known all along. Skill hidden in plain sight was more powerful than brute force. She had survived not by luck, but by patience, precision, and preparation. Her reputation as a meticulous supply officer grew, while her lethal capabilities remained concealed, a secret weapon poised for the right moment. Every day, every patrol, every careful calculation built her legend in silence. Emily Harper, underestimated and overlooked, was already changing the fate of those around her, even if no one realized it yet. By the end of her first month overseas, Emily had solidified her dual identity. To her unit, she was the calm, meticulous lieutenant organizing supplies, ensuring ammunition, and observing protocol with unwavering dedication. To herself, she was a silent predator, a guardian who moved unseen, neutralizing threats, and preparing for challenges far beyond ordinary comprehension. The stage was set for a revelation that would astonish everyone. But for now, Emily Harper remained quiet, precise, and deadly, a hidden force within the chaos of war. The day began like any other for Emily Harper's unit, yet there was an unmistakable tension in the air. Intelligence had reported increased enemy activity near a nearby village. A cluster of crumbling buildings, narrow alleyways, and open courtyards that made ambushes almost inevitable. Soldiers moved with heightened alertness, scanning the streets and surrounding rooftops. Emily, as always, appeared calm and focused, her hands arranging magazines, checking rifles, and silently monitoring her surroundings. No one suspected that she was already calculating trajectories, anticipating enemy movements, and preparing to intervene before any threat could manifest. The patrol started cautiously. Emily's unit advanced along the main street, boots striking pavement in a synchronized rhythm, eyes darting to every doorway and alley. Children peeked from behind walls, Women waved at the soldiers, and men observed with wary curiosity. The streets were deceptively calm, masking the tension of a hidden threat. Emily noted every movement, the twitch of a curtain, the glint of sunlight on metal, the slight rustle of dust. These small, often overlooked details were her advantage, allowing her to anticipate danger before it struck. Suddenly, gunfire erupted from the upper floors of a partially collapsed building. Soldiers ducked for cover, bullets ricocheting off concrete and metal. Panic rippled through the unit. Emily, however, remained composed. Her eyes scanned the building, calculating angles, distances, and the best approach to neutralize the threat. She adjusted her scope, aligning it with a narrow window where enemy combatants had been glimpsed. Her hands moved with practiced precision, and the first shot rang out a single deadly impact. One enemy combatant collapsed silently, unseen by anyone but Emily herself. The firefight intensified. More insurgents emerged from cover, firing indiscriminately. Soldiers returned fire, but chaos reigned, and some were pinned down behind crates and debris. Emily moved with ghost-like efficiency, shifting positions to maintain cover while lining up additional targets. Each shot she fired was deliberate, calculated to disable without alerting the remaining enemies to her exact position. Bullets found their marks with uncanny accuracy, neutralizing threats before they could react. Her peers could only glimpse the results enemy combatants, falling with no visible assailant. By the time the dust settled, the ambush was over. Emily's unit had escaped without casualties, a rare and miraculous outcome given the intensity of the attack. Soldiers exchanged bewildered glances, asking each other who had delivered such precise fire. Lieutenant Harper, as always, appeared unremarkable, dusting off her uniform and checking the magazine count. It must have been someone on overwatch, a soldier speculated. Another nodded, still staring at the crumpled enemies. The truth was far more extraordinary. The quiet, unassuming supply officer had single-handedly neutralized a well-coordinated ambush, her lethal skill hidden in plain sight. News of the incident spread quickly within the unit, though details were scarce. Rumors of a phantom sniper began circulating. Some believed it was an intelligence unit or a specialized team operating covertly. Soldiers speculated and debated, their imaginations filling in the gaps left by the lack of eyewitnesses. Emily listened quietly, her calm demeanor unchanged. She allowed the whispers to grow, recognizing the psychological advantage created by anonymity. No one suspected her because no one had reasoned her unassuming habits of counting magazines, and organizing supplies masked the deadly precision she had just displayed. The colonel, stationed at the base, received the initial reports with skepticism. He studied the patrol logs, the timing of enemy casualties, and the placement of shots. The precision was extraordinary, almost impossible given the circumstances. There was no record of a sniper team being deployed. Who had performed this feat? A question gnawed at him. Emily Harper's name appeared in the logs as the officer responsible for supply and organization, but nothing in her official duties suggested she possessed extraordinary combat skills. Yet the colonel sensed an anomaly, a discrepancy between what the logs showed and what should have been possible. Emily herself reflected on the ambush with quiet satisfaction. She did not dwell on the glory of the kills, nor did she seek recognition. Each shot had been necessary, precise, and effective. Her thoughts focused on the mechanics, the trajectory, the wind, the timing, and the small lessons learned for future engagements. Every ambush, every patrol, every unseen intervention was a building block in her mastery of her environment. She had saved lives without anyone knowing, and that secrecy was as important as the action itself. The unit continued patrols in the following days, now hyper-alert, but unaware of the invisible guardian watching over them. Emily maintained her routines, counting magazines, checking equipment, and scanning for threats. Yet she also extended her covert observation, mapping enemy routes, identifying weak points, and preparing for contingencies. Every movement was deliberate, every observation catalogued. The quiet lieutenant became an invisible strategist. Her presence felt only in the safety her skill provided. As the week progressed, Emily's dual life became more pronounced. Soldiers praised her organizational efficiency, unaware that every detail they took for granted, the precise count of magazines, the secure placement of supplies, was part of a larger pattern of preparation. Emily understood that success in combat required both visible and invisible control, visible efficiency to gain trust and concealment, and invisible mastery to neutralize threats before they could strike. Her reputation as a meticulous officer grew, while her lethal capability remained an unspoken secret. The next encounter confirmed Emily's hidden prowess further. During a reconnaissance mission along a ridgeline overlooking a supply route, insurgents attempted a coordinated attack. Emily positioned herself on a rooftop, unseen by both her unit and the enemy. She identified the key targets, the insurgents attempting to flank the soldiers below. With calm, measured breaths, she took careful shots, each one disabling an enemy combatant silently and precisely. By the time her unit noticed the threat, it had already been neutralized. Soldiers were baffled. The phantom sniper had struck again. Emily's careful balance of visibility and invisibility was perfected during these missions. She maintained the appearance of a quiet supply officer, while in reality orchestrating life-saving interventions with surgical precision. She understood human perception as much as ballistics. Her colleagues saw only what she allowed them to see. A meticulous officer ensuring the unit's equipment was ready, the magazines counted, and the patrol routes organized. What they could not see was the deadly guardian silently controlling the battlefield from the shadows. By the end of the first month of active engagement, Emily Harper's reputation for calm efficiency was firmly established. Soldiers relied on her organizational skills, while the phantom sniper legend quietly grew among the ranks. Emily remained the same composed, modest officer, masking the extraordinary skill she had displayed repeatedly in combat. Her success was measured not by recognition or accolades, but by the lives she had preserved, the ambushes she had thwarted, and the precise lethal interventions carried out without fanfare. The first confirmation of Emily's hidden talent was now undeniable. Reports of impossible precision, ambushes neutralized before they could harm soldiers, and deaths executed with surgical timing reached the colonel. Emily's dual existence, as ordinary officer and extraordinary sniper, was intact. Yet the seeds of suspicion had been planted. Someone capable of such skill could not remain invisible indefinitely. The day would come when the full truth of Hawkeye would be revealed. Until then, Emily continued her quiet vigilance, balancing preparation, patience, and deadly accuracy with the unassuming demeanor of a lieutenant who seemed to be only counting magazines. By nightfall, Emily perched on the roof of her barracks once more, scanning the streets below with practiced eyes. The glow of the moon illuminated rooftops, alleys, and streets, casting long shadows that could hide both threats and opportunities. Her rifle rested lightly in her hands, scope adjusted, fingers steady. Every movement, every breath, every decision was measured. Emily Harper had passed her first major test overseas, not with fanfare or recognition, but with precise action and calm calculation. She had confirmed what she had always known. The quietest soldier could be the deadliest, and patience, observation, and skill could turn the tide of any conflict. As she descended to return to her unit, Emily allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. The phantom sniper legend had begun to take shape, though no one knew who it was. She smiled faintly, counting magazines as she walked, maintaining appearances while knowing the truth of her own skill. The first confirmation was complete. Emily Harper, underestimated, overlooked, and hidden in plain sight, had proven that her deadly precision was not luck, not chance, but the product of years of dedication, discipline, and unwavering focus. The battlefield would never be the same. The incident reports arrived at Colonel Mason's desk like a series of impossible puzzles. Bullet trajectories, target elimination, timing every detail defied conventional explanation. The ambushes had been neutralized with surgical precision, yet no officially assigned sniper had been deployed. Who was responsible? Mason leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples, reviewing logs and after-action reports. Every shred of evidence pointed to the impossible. An invisible operative executing lethal strikes with the calm efficiency of a seasoned veteran. He frowned, his instincts telling him there was a remarkable soldier in his unit, someone he had overlooked. Colonel Mason knew Emily Harper's name well. She was, according to the roster, a meticulous supply officer, responsible for counting magazines, organizing equipment, and maintaining inventory for the unit. Everything in her file pointed to ordinary, almost mundane duties. Yet the precision of the strikes, the timing, and the efficiency suggested expertise far beyond her listed responsibilities. He studied her evaluations, noting her discipline, attention to detail, and quiet demeanor. Could someone so unassuming be capable of such deadly accuracy? The thought intrigued him and sparked a determination to uncover the truth. Mason requested a private meeting with Emily under the pretext of reviewing her supply management. She arrived promptly, standing at attention, her expression calm and professional. "Lieutenant Harper, thank you for coming," he began, his voice steady but probing. "I've been reviewing recent patrol reports. I noticed some unusual outcomes. I'd like to understand your perspective on them." Emily tilted her head slightly, listening intently, a subtle calm masking the storm of awareness behind her eyes. She had expected scrutiny to grow, but the colonel's approach was measured, almost cautious. "I appreciate your attention, sir," Emily replied evenly. "I ensure that all equipment is accounted for and properly maintained. That's my primary responsibility." Her words were technically true, yet they hid the truth with ease. Mason's eyes lingered on her, searching for a hint, a slip, anything that might confirm his suspicions. "Lieutenant," he continued, leaning forward slightly, "these patrols? The efficiency, the accuracy, the prevention of casualties. It's remarkable. It's unlike anything we've seen before. I need to know, is there something you're not reporting?" Emily's face remained serene. She let a pause stretch, counting magazines in her mind as she maintained composure. She understood the significance of this moment. The colonel was close, and one misstep could compromise everything. Finally, she spoke softly but firmly. "Sir, I've trained extensively in marksmanship, reconnaissance, and field observation. My focus has always been on minimizing risk to the unit and ensuring safety. That is the only objective I pursue." Her words were truthful yet incomplete, leaving Mason both intrigued and uncertain. Colonel Mason's gaze sharpened. "Marksmanship? Field observation? Are you saying—" He hesitated, the weight of possibility dawning on him. "Lieutenant Harper, do you have a codename?" Emily's eyes flicked briefly, a glimmer of acknowledgement passing through her otherwise composed expression. She did not answer immediately, allowing suspense to settle between them. Finally, almost quietly, she said, "Hawkeye." The name struck Mason like a lightning bolt. The reports, the precision, the invisible interventions, it all made sense now. The quiet supply officer, meticulously counting magazines, organizing equipment, and appearing almost ordinary, was the legendary sniper operating under the codename Hawkeye. His astonishment was tempered by relief. The phantom sniper they had been speculating about had been in plain sight the entire time. He leaned back, processing the revelation. Aware that Emily's skill had likely saved countless lives without a single person knowing her identity. Mason studied Emily carefully, noting her calm demeanor and disciplined posture. There was no arrogance, no boastful pride, only quiet confidence and unwavering focus. "Hawkeye," he repeated slowly, "I underestimated you, not only in terms of skill, but in strategy, patience, and discretion. Why remain hidden?" Emily's expression softened slightly, almost imperceptibly. "Sir, effectiveness depends on surprise. Visibility compromises precision. Recognition is secondary to mission success." Her answer was simple, rational, and true. She had never sought glory, only the lives she could protect and the success of her unit. The colonel requested a private demonstration, not as a test of skill, but as confirmation of what he had deduced from the reports. Emily agreed without hesitation. Under his watchful eyes, she prepared her rifle and set up a simulation with targets at varying distances and angles. Each shot she fired was precise, flawless, and controlled. Mason watched, astonished, as the bullet struck exactly where intended, executing the exact efficiency he had seen in the field. The demonstration confirmed what he already knew. Emily Harper was not only Hawkeye, but a once-in-a-generation marksman capable of changing the tide of combat with calm, calculated precision. Word of the revelation spread carefully within the higher ranks. Emily's colleagues remained unaware at first, allowing Mason to control the narrative and maintain operational security. He ensured that only those who needed to know would be briefed, understanding that Emily's effectiveness relied on secrecy. Yet rumors began to circulate, whispers of Hawkeye's identity, the quiet lieutenant who had been saving lives in the shadows, and the extraordinary skill that had been hiding in plain sight. Emily remained composed, counting magazines as always, maintaining her appearance of ordinary diligence, while the legend of Hawkeye quietly grew. The first official recognition came during a strategy meeting. Mason acknowledged Emily's contribution to the recent ambush avoidance and precision operations. Lieutenant Harper's actions prevented multiple casualties, he stated formally, though without revealing all the details. Emily received commendation quietly, standing with understated pride. Her peers, while impressed by her organizational skill, remained largely unaware of the lethal intervention behind it. Emily's philosophy had been proven correct. Effectiveness and discretion often outweighed visibility and acclaim. Later that evening, Emily reflected on the duality of her role. She had been underestimated, overlooked, and dismissed as merely meticulous, a perception she had cultivated intentionally. Yet in truth, she was capable of extraordinary precision, patience, and lethal intervention. Recognition from the colonel validated her years of preparation, but she did not allow it to alter her focus. Her priorities remained the same: protect her unit, maintain operational effectiveness, and ensure that her skill, while known to a select few, remained strategically concealed until the appropriate moment. Her first encounter with acknowledgement did not change her habits. She continued counting magazines with obsessive care, checking rifles, and organizing supplies. Yet now, there was a subtle shift. Her confidence was bolstered by the knowledge that even the colonel recognized her skill. She moved through the barracks and training grounds with the same calm efficiency, but now with a quiet assurance that her preparation, patience, and discretion had been validated. She had proven that appearances could deceive, and that true skill often lay hidden behind ordinary tasks. The revelation of Hawkeye's identity created a ripple effect. Soldiers who had teased her for counting magazines now viewed her with respect, though many still did not grasp the full extent of her abilities. Emily understood the dynamics of perception. She allowed them to see only what she wanted. The quiet lieutenant, meticulous and unassuming, had become a symbol of hidden strength and lethal precision. Mason, aware of the strategic value of her secrecy, ensured her assignments continued in ways that maximized impact without compromising her identity. By the end of the week, Emily's role as Hawkeye had been quietly cemented. She was no longer just a supply officer. She was a sniper, a strategist, and a guardian operating from the shadows. Yet her outward demeanor remained unchanged. She counted magazines, organized equipment, and performed duties with meticulous care, masking the extraordinary skill that had earned her codename recognition. Emily Harper had mastered the balance of visibility and invisibility, humility and lethal expertise. The stage was set for the next phase of her journey, where skill, discretion, and courage would continue to intersect in ways that would astonish all who encountered her. The revelation of Emily Harper's codename, Hawkeye, sent subtle ripples through the unit. Soldiers who had once dismissed her as the meticulous lieutenant counting magazines now regarded her with a mixture of awe, suspicion, and envy. Emily moved among them with her usual calm demeanor, yet she was acutely aware of the shift in perception. Some colleagues whispered in hushed tones, attempting to gauge whether Hawkeye's skill had been present in other unseen moments. Others avoided her gaze, unsure whether admiration or intimidation was the correct response. Emily neither encouraged nor discouraged their speculation. Her presence alone spoke volumes. Colonel Mason had arranged for Emily to receive commendation, but in a measured, discreet way. She was officially acknowledged for her contributions to the unit's safety during ambushes, but full disclosure of her sniper interventions remained classified. Mason understood that Hawkeye's effectiveness relied on secrecy, and revealing everything at once could compromise operations. Emily accepted the commendation with her usual composure, nodding politely while keeping her emotions in check. She had trained for recognition to be irrelevant. Impact, not visibility, was her true measure of success. Despite the official acknowledgement, tension began to simmer among her peers. Soldiers who had once considered her ordinary now questioned their previous assumptions. "She's been saving us all this time," one whispered to another, shaking his head. "And we had no idea." Some grudgingly admired her discipline and lethal precision, while others struggled with jealousy or discomfort at being outshone by someone who had been overlooked for so long. Emily noticed the micro-expressions, the careful recalibrations of attitude and respect. Every observation, every glance, was data to be cataloged for future interactions. Emily's dual life became increasingly complex. She maintained the outward appearance of the diligent supply officer, counting magazines, checking rifles, and monitoring inventory with meticulous care. Behind the facade, however, she was also the lethal operative Hawkeye, executing covert reconnaissance and neutralizing threats with surgical precision. Every mission, every patrol, every silent intervention heightened the tension between her visible role and hidden skill. This balance required constant awareness, mental discipline, and emotional restraint. One misstep could jeopardize both her secrecy and her effectiveness. During a particularly tense patrol, Emily noticed the strain among her peers. Some hesitated when assessing risk, unsure whether they could measure up to Hawkeye's capabilities. Others were overly cautious, their movements hesitant, fearing missteps in her presence. Emily recognized the psychological impact of her revealed skill. Leadership in combat was not only about physical prowess. It was about influence, perception, and confidence. She adjusted her approach accordingly, remaining approachable yet firm, encouraging her peers to perform their roles effectively without drawing attention to her own extraordinary skill. The colonel observed the situation carefully. He understood that recognition could create both motivation and tension. Soldiers who felt inspired by Hawkeye's abilities might train harder and respond more effectively in combat. Conversely, envy or resentment could undermine unit cohesion. Mason relied on Emily's judgment as well as her discretion to navigate this delicate balance. Emily herself was keenly aware of the interpersonal dynamics. Her outward calm masked a constant internal assessment. Who could be relied upon? Who required guidance? And who might falter under pressure? One evening, after a long day of reconnaissance and supply organization, Emily gathered her thoughts on a rooftop overlooking the base. The orange glow of sunset reflected off distant buildings, casting long shadows that concealed or revealed, depending on the observer's perspective. She considered the tension that had emerged since her codename was discovered. Some soldiers were inspired, some fearful, others resentful. She understood the necessity of patience and subtlety in maintaining unity. Leadership, she realized, required not just skill with a rifle, but skill with perception, influence, and timing. The tension escalated during a high-stakes operation to secure a supply convoy through contested territory. Emily's unit navigated narrow streets and crumbling buildings, aware that insurgents might ambush them at any moment. The soldiers' apprehension was palpable. Every shadow seemed to conceal danger. Emily moved confidently among them, quietly offering guidance and reassurance. She took strategic positions, maintaining visibility while remaining unpredictable. Her calm presence helped stabilize the unit's nerves, though the psychological weight of her codename, Hawkeye, lingered in the background. Soldiers were simultaneously reassured and unsettled by the knowledge of her skill. During the convoy operation, Emily's abilities were tested under extreme pressure. Enemy combatants emerged from hidden positions, firing with deadly intent. The soldiers reacted quickly, but the chaos threatened to overwhelm them. Emily assessed the scene instantly. Lines of fire, angles, escape routes, and the relative positions of her teammates. She executed precise, controlled shots, neutralizing threats with surgical efficiency. The unit survived the ambush without casualties, yet the tension in the aftermath was undeniable. Her peers, witnessing the results without understanding the mechanics, were both awed and unsettled. Hawkeye had acted again, silently and decisively. In the following days, Emily balanced her dual responsibilities with careful attention. She continued counting magazines and organizing supplies, while also monitoring patrol routes, identifying potential ambush points, and refining her strategic observations. The tension among the unit persisted, a mixture of respect, unease, and recalibrated social dynamics. Emily understood that maintaining this balance required constant vigilance. She could not afford complacency. Any lapse in attention or misjudgment could not only compromise operations, but also the perception of her peers, which influenced both morale and effectiveness. Emily also recognized the personal challenges of her dual identity. While her codename, Hawkeye, carried admiration and acknowledgement from the colonel, it also isolated her. She could not fully share her experiences or training with peers, lest she disrupt unit cohesion or reveal critical operational details. The psychological weight of secrecy was a burden, yet Emily bore it with quiet resilience. She found solace in routine, in the discipline of counting magazines, in meticulous observation, and in the knowledge that her actions were saving lives, even if few understood how. The colonel, aware of the delicate tension, continued to guide Emily's role strategically. Mason assigned her missions that leveraged her skill while maintaining discretion. He offered support, debriefed her after operations, and subtly acknowledged her contributions. Emily responded with the same calm professionalism, executing each directive with precision and measured judgment. Her awareness of unit dynamics, combined with her lethal expertise, made her an invaluable asset. She had become more than a sniper or supply officer. She was a stabilizing force within a complex and dangerous environment. By the end of the month, the unit had adapted to the revelation of Hawkeye. Soldiers moved with heightened awareness, their confidence subtly shaped by Emily's influence. While some tension remained, respect mingled with unease, the unit's cohesion and effectiveness improved. Emily Harper, the quiet lieutenant, had navigated the challenge of recognition and tension with grace and skill. She had proven that leadership required not just technical mastery, but emotional intelligence, patience, and strategic foresight. Hawkeye's legend continued to grow, not only for her precision, but also for her ability to command attention and respect without dominance or display. Emily reflected quietly on the lessons of this period. Recognition, she understood, was both a privilege and a challenge. Her skill could inspire, protect, and elevate her unit, but it could also create envy, fear, and psychological pressure. The key was balance: visibility without exposure, influence without arrogance, and precision without distraction. She had maintained that balance thus far, ensuring her role as Hawkeye remained both effective and strategically advantageous. Every mission, every observation, every silent intervention was part of a carefully calibrated equilibrium. The story of Emily Harper's recognition and the tension it created was not merely about skill. It was about the interplay of perception, respect, and discipline. Her dual identity, meticulous supply officer and lethal sniper, served as a living demonstration that appearances could be deceiving. Soldiers learned to navigate the uncertainty, adapting to the presence of a hidden force whose skill was both protective and awe-inspiring. Emily had not only preserved lives, but also reshaped the dynamics of her unit, creating a culture of respect and awareness. As she returned to her quarters that night, Emily counted magazines with habitual precision, her mind reviewing the day's events, the subtle shifts in morale, and the lessons learned from tension and recognition. She understood that leadership was not only about skill, but about managing perception, maintaining discretion, and guiding others with both example and action. Hawkeye had emerged from obscurity, yet her true strength lay in the combination of lethal talent and unwavering composure. Emily Harper had become more than a soldier. She had become a silent force, shaping both battlefield outcomes and human dynamics. By now, Emily Harper was no longer merely a lieutenant quietly counting magazines. Her codename, Hawkeye, had been discreetly revealed to select command personnel, and her reputation for precision, patience, and lethal efficiency had begun to ripple through the higher ranks. Colonel Mason had ensured that she was deployed in situations where her skill could be decisive, yet her identity remained concealed from the general unit to maintain operational advantage. Every mission was calculated, every move deliberate. As Emily's dual role expanded, supply officer in appearance, elite sniper in execution, the orders for full deployment came swiftly. Intelligence reports indicated that an insurgent network had established a fortified outpost along a critical supply route. The terrain was treacherous, jagged cliffs, narrow ridgelines, and abandoned villages offering perfect ambush opportunities. The operation required both subtle reconnaissance and surgical precision. Emily reviewed maps, memorized every ridge and alleyway, and plotted sniper positions that would allow her to cover her unit's movement while remaining invisible. This was the kind of mission where Hawkeye could make the difference between life and death. Upon arrival at the forward staging area, Emily coordinated with her team, maintaining the facade of the diligent supply officer, checking magazines and verifying equipment. Soldiers assumed she was performing routine logistics, unaware that she was simultaneously calculating trajectories, angles, and lines of fire that could neutralize multiple threats before they even appeared. Her attention to detail was impeccable. Every magazine checked, every weapon accounted for, every piece of equipment in perfect order. Yet behind this calm exterior, her mind was a battlefield of strategy and observation. The night before the mission, Emily ascended to a vantage point overlooking the route the unit would take. The moon cast long shadows across the crumbling buildings and jagged cliffs. She adjusted her rifle, tested distances, and calculated wind speed, humidity, and trajectory. Each shot she mentally rehearsed, ensuring that every possible threat could be neutralized with surgical efficiency. Hours passed as she moved silently among rooftops, imagining enemy patrols, calculating angles, and visualizing contingencies. By the time dawn approached, she was ready. The mission commenced at first light. Emily's unit advanced cautiously along the route, aware of the potential for ambush, but unaware of the precise level of danger. Enemy snipers had been reported in the area, and insurgents were likely to monitor movement from concealed positions. Emily maintained her outward composure, walking alongside her colleagues as though she were merely ensuring ammunition was accounted for. In reality, she was simultaneously acting as a guardian, scanning every rooftop, shadow, and ridge for threats. Every instinct honed through years of training and covert observation came into play. It wasn't long before the first threat materialized. A concealed enemy sniper fired a shot from a crumbling rooftop, the bullet narrowly missing a young soldier. Panic rippled through the formation, but Emily's reaction was instantaneous. She raised her rifle, calculated the angle, and fired. The enemy sniper sloped silently, neutralized before he could adjust his aim. Her colleagues glanced around in confusion, trying to pinpoint the source of the shot, but all they saw was Emily checking her magazines with calm precision. Hawkeye had struck again, silently protecting the unit without revealing her position. As the convoy continued, multiple ambush points emerged. Enemy combatants hid behind overturned vehicles, crumbling walls, and jagged cliffs, firing sporadically to pin down the soldiers. Emily moved fluidly, transitioning between elevated positions and concealed areas. Every shot she fired was calculated, silent, and lethal. She neutralized threats in a controlled sequence, ensuring that enemy fire could not focus on her unit. Her presence was invisible, yet every intervention was decisive. By the time the convoy reached a safer zone, the ambush had been dismantled, casualties were avoided, and the insurgents were disoriented. The colonel, observing from a command post, reviewed live updates from drone feeds and field reports. Each confirmed what he already knew. Emily Harper was executing the operation with precision unmatched by conventional snipers. Her ability to maintain composure, anticipate enemy movements, and act decisively under pressure elevated her from an elite marksman to a strategic asset of immense value. Mason's decision to limit the knowledge of Hawkeye's identity had proven wise. The element of surprise remained intact, ensuring maximum operational efficiency. The psychological impact on the unit was subtle but profound. Soldiers began to notice patterns of intervention that seemed almost preternatural. Some speculated about the presence of an unseen sniper, while others recognized Emily's extraordinary calm and precise oversight during engagements. Tension and curiosity grew in equal measure. Emily understood the dual role she had cultivated, maintaining operational secrecy while subtly influencing unit performance. She encouraged confidence, minimized fear, and allowed the legend of Hawkeye to inspire without disrupting cohesion. Over the next week, Emily continued to execute high-stakes operations. Each mission reinforced her dual identity: supply officer by day, invisible guardian by design, sniper by necessity. Enemy forces adapted slowly, often underestimating the quiet lieutenant whose meticulous habits masked lethal skill. Emily anticipated these adaptations, modifying her strategies and observing patterns in insurgent behavior. She moved like a ghost through the environment, calculating every shot, every movement, every interaction. Her precision became not just tactical, but psychological, a constant, invisible influence that shaped the battlefield without revealing her hand. During one critical operation, Emily's unit faced a heavily fortified compound. Insurgents had entrenched themselves with clear lines of fire and strong defensive positions. Standard approaches would have been disastrous. Emily ascended a high vantage point, analyzed the terrain, and plotted a series of calculated shots that neutralized key threats without alerting the remaining enemy forces. The soldiers advanced under her silent protection, achieving objectives with minimal risk. By mission's end, the compound was secured, enemy resistance suppressed, and the unit emerged without casualties. Hawkeye had executed a flawless operation, her dual life concealed in plain sight. Despite repeated successes, Emily remained disciplined and grounded. She did not allow recognition, or even the colonel's private acknowledgement, to inflate her ego. Each mission was an opportunity to refine her skill, protect lives, and maintain operational secrecy. The psychological and strategic dimensions of her role were as important as marksmanship. She had learned that patience, discretion, and preparation often mattered more than visibility or acknowledgement. Her focus remained on the mission and the unit, not personal glory. By the conclusion of her full deployment, Emily Harper had solidified her legend. Hawkeye was no longer merely a codename. It was a symbol of lethal precision, calm composure, and invisible guardianship. Soldiers who had once underestimated her now moved with both admiration and subtle wariness. Commanders recognized her strategic value, both as a marksman and a stabilizing influence on unit morale. Emily's dual identity had not only saved lives, but had transformed perceptions, demonstrating that skill, discretion, and leadership could coexist in extraordinary ways. As she returned to her quarters after yet another high-stakes mission, Emily reviewed her mental notes, mapping each engagement and refining strategies for future operations. She counted magazines, checked her rifle, and organized equipment as always, her outward appearance unchanged. Yet the weight of her experience, the tension, the recognition, the dual life, was acknowledged quietly in her mind. Emily Harper, Hawkeye, had become a force invisible yet undeniable, a guardian whose lethal skill reshaped every battlefield she touched. The full deployment had confirmed what she had always known. True impact lay not in visibility, but in precision, patience, and controlled action. Her skill had been recognized by those who mattered, tested in the most dangerous circumstances, and had preserved countless lives. And yet, Emily remained the same quiet, meticulous lieutenant, counting magazines and observing her surroundings with calm efficiency. The legend of Hawkeye had been solidified, but the work and the vigilance was far from over. The mission that would define Emily Harper's legacy began under a pre-dawn sky, the horizon streaked with purple and amber light. Intelligence had pinpointed a high-value insurgent leader coordinating attacks from a fortified village several kilometers away. The operation required precision, patience, and flawless execution. One mistake could cost the lives of dozens of soldiers. Emily, now fully recognized by Colonel Mason as Hawkeye, prepared meticulously, her calm exterior masking the storm of calculation within. Every angle, every distance, every potential threat was considered and catalogued. Her unit advanced cautiously, navigating narrow streets, abandoned buildings, and treacherous ridgelines. The tension among the soldiers was palpable. They knew the mission's stakes were higher than ever. Emily moved among them, outwardly checking supplies and confirming equipment. But her mind was already in position atop a ridge overlooking the village, calculating trajectories, wind, and visibility. This mission demanded everything she had trained for, the culmination of years of discipline, precision, and preparation. She was ready. As the convoy neared the outskirts of the village, enemy fire erupted. Combatants had anticipated the advance, ambushing the lead vehicles with well-coordinated gunfire. Soldiers dove for cover, panic threatening to disrupt the unit's cohesion. Emily's reflexes kicked in instantly. She took a calculated position on an elevated ridge, scanning the compound and alleyways for the highest priority targets. Each movement was precise, deliberate. Every shot she fired neutralized threats before they could adjust or retaliate, allowing her unit to advance with minimal casualties. The insurgent leader, the mission's primary objective, was well protected within the compound. Guards patrolled rooftops, alleyways, and courtyards, forming multiple layers of defense. Emily assessed the layout from her vantage point, calculating the angles of fire, lines of sight, and timing required to neutralize each obstacle. She coordinated with Colonel Mason via secure communication, providing real-time intelligence without revealing her exact position. Every decision she made was a balance of precision, patience, and control, ensuring that her intervention would remain both lethal and unseen. Hours passed as the unit carefully maneuvered closer to the compound. Emily's focus was absolute. She adjusted for changes in wind, humidity, and the subtle shift of sunlight across buildings, visualizing each shot before it happened. When the time came, her actions were flawless. Guards were eliminated silently, one by one, their movements anticipated and countered. Her unit moved through the compound's perimeter, gaining ground with confidence, bolstered by Hawkeye's unseen protection. Soldiers who had previously relied solely on instinct now advanced with measured assurance, guided indirectly by Emily's lethal oversight. The final confrontation approached. The insurgent leader was located on a balcony, surveying the surrounding streets. Any exposure risked the lives of everyone in the area. Emily, calculating trajectory and timing, prepared for a single decisive shot. She adjusted her scope, accounted for distance, wind, and elevation, and took a deep, measured breath. With flawless precision, she fired. The bullet struck with exact timing, incapacitating the target instantly. Chaos dissolved into stunned silence. The insurgent leader was neutralized without a single soldier in her unit being harmed. Hawkeye had completed the mission with surgical perfection. Colonel Mason, observing from a secure command post, exhaled slowly. He had witnessed Emily's precision from both field reports and real-time communication, yet even he was awestruck by her execution. "She's extraordinary," he muttered, almost to himself. For Mason, the culmination of Emily's skill was no longer theoretical. It was tangible, undeniable, and transformative. He understood that her combination of patience, precision, and discretion had shifted the balance of the operation entirely in their favor. Hawkeye's legend had reached its apex. In the aftermath, Emily descended from her vantage point to join her unit. Soldiers stared at her, their expressions a mixture of awe, respect, and incredulity. For months, they had heard rumors of a phantom sniper. Now, they were confronted with the living proof. Emily's calm, measured demeanor remained unchanged, but the weight of recognition was evident. She did not boast, did not seek accolades. Instead, she counted magazines, checked rifles, and organized supplies as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. The ultimate revelation was not about personal glory. It was about mission success and the lives she had preserved. The ripple effect of her actions was immediate. Soldiers who had underestimated her now moved with respect and confidence, inspired by the knowledge that Hawkeye had been guiding them from the shadows. Enemy forces were demoralized, unable to comprehend how a single operative had anticipated, neutralized, and controlled the battlefield so efficiently. Emily's dual-identity ordinary supply officer and lethal sniper had reached full impact. Her skill had been validated in the most extreme circumstances, and her presence had fundamentally altered both the unit's effectiveness and the psychological landscape of the battlefield. Colonel Mason arranged a debriefing, both to recognize her achievements and to discuss future operational strategy. He spoke quietly but firmly, acknowledging the precision, patience, and foresight Emily had demonstrated. "Hawkeye," he said, using the codename deliberately, "you've changed the way we approach every mission. Your skill, discretion, and leadership have saved lives beyond measure. We need to ensure we leverage your abilities while maintaining operational security." Emily nodded, understanding the balance required. Recognition without exposure, influence without compromise, effectiveness without ego. The debriefing also addressed her peers, who were cautiously introduced to the reality of Hawkeye's interventions. Soldiers were amazed, many struggling to reconcile the ordinary, meticulous lieutenant they had known with the lethal, precise sniper who had protected them. Emily maintained her composure, explaining the importance of preparation, patience, and observation. She emphasized teamwork and discipline, framing her actions as extensions of unit strategy rather than individual heroism. Her humility reinforced her authority, transforming respect into trust and admiration. Emily reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From counting magazines in obscurity to executing complex operations with surgical precision, she had navigated the delicate balance of dual identities. Each mission had honed not only her technical skill, but also her leadership, discretion, and strategic insight. She understood that true mastery was not only about hitting targets, but about influencing outcomes, protecting lives, and maintaining operational advantage through subtlety and intelligence. Hawkeye was more than a codename. It was the embodiment of her philosophy: patience, precision, and silent effectiveness. In the days following the final operation, Emily continued her duties with calm efficiency. The unit had internalized the presence of Hawkeye, and morale had strengthened under the subtle assurance of her vigilance. Enemy forces had been destabilized, their confidence undermined by a threat they could neither see nor predict. Emily's legacy as both guardian and operative was now secure, yet she remained vigilant. Every mission, every patrol, every observation continued to demand her attention, and she approached each with the same meticulous care and quiet determination. As night fell over the forward operating base, Emily sat atop a ridge overlooking the surrounding terrain. The moon cast long shadows, and the distant sounds of activity were muted by the stillness of the night. She adjusted her scope, scanning the landscape for threats or anomalies. Her thoughts were calm, precise, and deliberate. Hawkeye had been revealed to command, to inspire, and to influence outcomes decisively. Yet the vigilance, patience, and preparation that defined her remained intact. She was ready for whatever came next. The ultimate revelation had not just been her identity or her skill, but the demonstration of what careful preparation, discipline, and discretion could achieve. Emily Harper, Hawkeye, had transformed the perception of her peers, the strategy of her unit, and the dynamics of the battlefield. She had proven that extraordinary skill could be hidden in plain sight, that patience could be lethal, and that the quietest soldier could wield the greatest influence. And as she descended from the ridge to return to her unit, she carried not only her rifle and magazines, but the full weight of her extraordinary legacy, silent, precise, and unstoppable.